Welcome back, guys. Hopefully you all are having a really good day so far. So today hopefully is going to be a relatively quick video on tumbling. We're going to be doing wet tumbling versus dry tumbling, and what we're going to be using is some of this 270 Winchester brass. I've fired this brass 8 times and it is Remington brand brass, but you can tell it's pretty dirty, especially in the neck area. That's where it tends to really get caked on pretty bad there. I'll zoom in so you guys can see that a little better. So yeah, the necks, they're just, I mean, they're dirty as can be, and they tend to be really hard to clean off. So what we're going to be doing is we're actually just going to go ahead and take all of this brass, we're going to deprime it, and we're going to throw it in the dry tumbler with fresh walnut media, which is the only thing this stuff has ever been tumbled in, is walnut media. And I normally try to tumble it for several hours actually, but today for the purpose of this test we're just going to be doing it for about 30 minutes in each tumbler. We're going to put some fresh walnut media in the dry tumbler with a little bit of Frankford Arsenal polish, and we're going to tumble these for 30 minutes. Then we're going to take them out, we're going to look at them again, particularly the neck area because that is where it's going to be most noticeable or most obvious here in the end. And then we are going to, like I said, look at them again after it's tumbled the first time. Then we're going to take them and put them in the wet tumbler using stainless steel pins, and it's going to be a Frankford Arsenal wet tumbler as well, and it's going to have some Frankford Arsenal polish in there as well. And then we're going to take them out and look at them a final time and see if there is any difference. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to toss these in the tumbler. I'm not going to record the tumbler the entire time because that would be an extremely boring video, but I may go ahead and put the camera on it just for a minute to show kind of the setup and what we're doing. So let's go ahead and get started. Real quick, I just wanted to show you guys the primer pockets of the brass that we just got done decapping with the Lee decapping die. They're pretty gunky, and hopefully the tumbler will clean out a good portion of that, but you guys will get to see here in a minute exactly what it'll do. But they're pretty black, as you can see. I like to decap my brass before I throw them in the tumbler just for that little bit of extra help getting those things cleaned out before you go to do your next firing. So now that you guys have seen that, let's go ahead and throw these guys in the tumbler. Alright guys, so there's nothing special going on here. We just got a good old-fashioned Hornady rotary tumbler and our brass, and the polish that we have used is this stuff right here. So let's go ahead and toss these guys in there, put the cap on, and we will start tumbling. Alright guys, so I just got done pulling these out of the dry tumbler. Like I said, we did 30 minutes. We'll take a look at the brass in a few different aspects, but for now, I'm going to show you guys the primer pockets. So the primer pockets look pretty much the same. Almost nothing has really changed in those, so that's not really even worth paying all that much attention to. But you can tell they're all still pretty dirty, which is rather more likely just due to the fact that I didn't leave it all in there that long and I didn't really use very much polish. So the reason all that stuff is so dusty is actually just because of lack of polish. But really, I probably should have done this video a little differently. I think it would have been best if I had tumbled it for several hours and then went ahead and did the comparison with throwing it in the wet tumbler for maybe even just 30 minutes. But besides the point, even though this stuff is still dirty, I'm going to show you some brass that was tumbled for actually 5 hours and what the result of those look like. So this is the 270 brass that we just tumbled, and again, the most important thing here to me that I want you guys to pay attention to is the neck. So it definitely is still very much black, and that is something you're going to see here again in just a moment with a different batch of brass that was tumbled for 5 hours. So I'm going to leave those there, and I'm going to throw in some 308 brass that's actually went through all the brass prep, but it is obviously of a different caliber. So these are 308 rounds, and these were tumbled for 5 hours. The media was completely treated, and it was pretty much the exact same outcome. So what you're seeing here is actually caked on carbon fouling, but it's not stained. So this is something that is not going to simply be removed with mild abrasives, which is essentially what we're using with corncob and or walnut media. So These were tumbled in the same tumbler using the same stuff that I've always used, and they're well polished on the outside. Like, you can feel that they're clean, as weird as that sounds, but the thing is, this carbon is so caked on there that it didn't fully remove it. It just simply polished over top of it and essentially just made it smooth. So you can actually scrape this off with like a sharp object. If you take like a box cutter or something, or just rub a piece of rough steel against it, it'll scrape all that off. So it's removable, but the problem is that media in the dry tumbler that we were using wasn't enough to get the job done. So I'm kind of already leading into the whole point of this video, and what I'm going to show you next is the wet tumbler, obviously, tumbler, and I know that it's going to clean these better, so we're going to show you that here in just a moment. We are going to throw our brass in here and miss most of it. So we only dropped about half of it in here. Alright, so we got our brass in there. Now we're going to put in our pins, which I really don't need to use this whole 5-pound bag, but that's kind of up to your discretion of how much you feel is necessary to use. I'm probably only going to put about half in here. 5 pounds is actually a lot of pins, guys. Like, if you're trying to figure out how many pins or what size quantity of pins to buy if you're getting into wet tumbling, 5 pounds is a lot. It'll do a full, I mean, if you fill this thing up with brass, I mean, don't obviously cap it off to where the stuff can't agitate, but if you fill that sucker up, 5 pounds is going to cover whatever you put in there, so you don't need to buy more than that, trust me, and they last pretty much forever. And then I'm just gonna dump a little bit of this in there. Really don't need a lot, but just kind of eyeballing it. I think normally they specify that you should use like 2 caps for a full thing, but it's really not that big of a deal. As long as you rinse off your brass kid, you'll be fine. So we're just gonna go ahead and do that. We're gonna fill it up the rest of the way, and I'll actually see if I can get that part filmed, because you'll see the stuff start to bubble up, the solution that we put in there. You'll see it start to foam up. It's kind of up to you how heavily you want to fill it, or how full you want to get it, but I just kind of fill it up to where the bubbles hit the top and I can still get the cap on. And like I said, you want to make sure you kind of wet your cap a little bit, or your caps rather, both of them, before you tighten this sucker down, because that will help you to keep leaks out. So we got a couple drips there, and then that should be it. So it's not leaking, that's good. I'm not going to show you guys the entire process of sifting all this stuff out, because this isn't necessarily a how to use this tumbler video. I just kind of wanted to throw in some tips if you decide to get into it. I know this video is already going a lot longer than I planned, but that's how this usually works. So anyway, we're going to throw this onto the machine that rotates it. We're going to run it for 30 minutes. It does have a timer, so it'll be exactly 30 minutes or very close to it. And then I'm going to pull them out again. I'm going to sift everything out, which takes a while. And then we're going to look at the brass again and see if it really is as much of a difference as I was claiming it was earlier. And then we'll conclude the video. Alright guys, time to show you the final conclusion here. So here's our 308 brass that we were looking at earlier that has those really dark necks, and I'm going to put up against them the 270s that we just pulled out of the wet tumbler. And there is our difference. So what you'll see is obviously the necks are significantly more clean. I think it's safe to say that the 308 necks still look pretty dirty, and the 270 necks are pretty much perfectly clean. Now I am also going to show you the primer pockets, but I wanted you guys to see the necks, because I think that was one of the biggest things for me, one of the reasons that I felt it was necessary to get a wet tumbler, because I got to the point to where I couldn't get those necks that clean. I mean, it's just, these were tumbled for 5 hours. These were tumbled for 30 minutes. So anyway, let's show you the primer pockets here. So the primer pockets, as you can see, are actually quite a bit cleaner. Even after only 30 minutes, they actually broke up some of that carbon inside of the primer pocket. They're not perfectly clean by any means, but considering these have been fired 8 times, they're breaking it up pretty good, because a lot of that stuff can get caked on there really bad, and it's doing a pretty good job. So I like that too. I like that it kind of makes that job a lot easier, whether you clean your primer pockets or not. This definitely makes it easier to do it without even really having to go through the trouble of intentionally and directly cleaning your primer pocket. So that's nice, and again, you can see all the necks are very clean compared to before. There's none of that black gunk on the neck anymore, or the necks rather. So I like that. That's nice. It's a big improvement over the walnut media, which obviously doesn't really do us a whole lot of good in that department. So anyway, that is the video. I just wanted to do a comparison of wet tumbling versus dry tumbling for the same period of time, using what is most commonly found in each of those departments. But like I said, I meant to make this a short video, and I probably failed once again. I tend to make things go a little bit longer than I want them to, and I apologize for that. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and cut it off here. So thank you guys for watching. I hope you got something out of this video. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please feel free to message me either directly, or you can leave a comment below. Feel free to subscribe if you want to see more videos. That helps me out considerably. And you guys stay safe, stay smart, stay risen, shoot straight, and we'll see y'all later. Y'all have a good